Hi, everyone. For those of you that don't already know, my name is Molly Bogle. I'm with the Atlanta Regional Commission. Today, Bonnie Lapwood, a colleague of mine, is here with me. And we are here supporting your local staff in developing your 2022 Comprehensive Plan update. Courtney, do you want to say a few words before we get started?
Sure, thanks, Molly. I'm Courtney Verdier. I'm the Planning and Development Specialist for the city. We're so glad you're here. We're so appreciative that you all were willing to serve on this comp plan steering committee. I'm going to be your project contact on behalf of the city. So if you ever have any questions, comments, suggestions, please feel free to reach out. And we're so appreciative of you, Molly, and your team for assisting us on this.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, thank you for your time. Your participation in this process is just so important to the final plan. Today, we're going to start with some introductions and overview. I want to get to know you all. We're going to have to keep it kind of short. We do have a lot of people here today, so we're going to ask you your name, what entity you're with. If you're not with an entity, if you're a resident or a business owner, please tell us that. And then just tell us what it is that you're looking forward to getting out of this process or what you're hoping to see in the final plan. We're then going to jump to some data trends to provide you some context for today's discussion. We'll move on to issues and opportunities. This is the what I consider the most important part of today's meeting. It's where we'll hear from you about Marietta's assets and challenges. And then we'll finish up with some next steps. We'll talk about what our next meeting will include, as well as some homework that I'd like for you all to complete before the next meeting. Not too onerous, I hope, but something just to help us along with this process. With that, I'm actually just going to open up the participant list and call you off in the order that it shows here on my screen. So no particular order. We're going to start with Rusty Roth.
Good afternoon. I'm Rusty Roth. I'm the Director of Development Services for the City of Marietta.
Thanks, Rusty. Next up is JML.
That stands for John Mark Lawson. My name's Mark. I'm the chairman of the Gateway Marietta CID, and I'm happy to be a part of the group. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Johnny Fulmer. Johnny Fulmer, can you hear us? Let's see. Looks like maybe he doesn't have microphone capability at the moment, so we're going to move on to Allison Gruen.
Hi, I'm Allison Gruen. I think for this meeting, I guess I'm considered a citizen representative, but I'm looking forward to working on it. And even though I've lived here most of my life, I've learned a lot reading the last report. So thank you.
Wonderful. Next up, Bob Kinney.
Yeah, Bob Kinney on the Planning Commission for Marietta, and just looking for an update to 2017.
All right, next up is Caroline Whaley.
Hi, I'm Caroline Whaley. I serve as the Executive Director for the Gateway Marietta CID. And like all of y'all, I look forward to an update and being a part of this.
Thanks. Chris Poston. Oh, you are muted.
Yep.
Chris.
Sorry, I got to hold that button down. Chris Poston at Trading Homes. Lived in Marietta my whole life. I'm a builder and developer, and I just would like to have some input to make sure that Marietta continues to grow in a good direction.
Wonderful. Chuck Gardner.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chuck Gardner, Chief Operations Officer for Marietta City Schools. Glad to be here.
Great. Daniel Cummings.
Daniel Cummings, Economic Development Manager for the city. Just really thankful for the great group that we've got here. Excited about the input. And I know over the past at least 20 years and even further, Marietta's made a lot of progress. So excited to see what we can do for the next 5 to 10. Thanks.
Thanks. Daniel Gaddis.
Hi, Daniel Gaddis, Economic Development Project Manager with the city, and just excited to be able to offer some staff support for the comprehensive plan update.
Wonderful, thank you. Emmett Pollard.
Yes, good afternoon. Emmett Pollard, owner of Pollard Capital. new to the Marietta area, and I'm happy to assist in the small business aspects.
Wonderful. Joseph Goldstein.
Joseph Goldstein, one of the council members for the city of Marietta.
Wonderful, thank you. M. Carlisle Kent. And I can see you there on camera, Mr. Kent. We'll come back. Melanie Kagan.
I'm Melanie Kagan, the CEO for the Center for Family Resources here in Marietta. We serve all of Cobb County. We had our housing support for families and work with the CDBG office, where I'm also the chair of the COC for Cobb and Marietta this year, so representing both entities in this year.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up is Noel or Noel.
Hey, yeah, this is Noel Taylor. I'm the Director of Development at the Marietta Housing Authority. So just seeing where possibly we can help with the affordable housing need here in the city and the county.
Great, thank you so much. Next up, I believe is the last name, Saccone.
Good, Sarah Saccone. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the city of Marietta, and super excited to be part of the project.
Wonderful. And did you say Saccone or just Saccone?
Saccone.
All right, great. And let's see, Shelby Little.
Yes, hi, I'm the Planning and Zoning Manager for the city of Marietta.
Great, thanks. Sonia Grant.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sonia Grant, and I'm the President and CEO of Cobb Works, and we are Cobb County's workforce development agency. I'm excited to be here, happy to be able to contribute and help inform strategies around workforce development and anything else that you might need. So glad to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sonia. Next up is Sterling's iPad Pro 11-inch. No, we're not able to hear you very well, Sterling. That sound is not coming in well at all. Maybe you could try calling him. That might offer you a little bit better sound. You can still use your iPad to view the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, he's muted now. All right, next up is Vault.
Well, I can introduce Sterling. Sterling is.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Daniel, unmute yourself. I just muted you. Sorry about that.
Sure thing. Sterling is the longtime member, but new chairman to the Marietta Development Authority. He's also a local small business owner in Marietta and very attuned to kind of the economic development needs of the community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Daniel. Next up is listed as Vault.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. I'm sorry. It's been a long day already.
Yeah.
I'm Stephen Vault. I'm Vice President of Strategic Community Development and Corporate Responsibility for Wellstar Health System, as well as the chair of Select Cobb. Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you so much. And Sterling's iPad is muted, but is still making some noise, so I apologize for that. Next up, and the last on the list, is the phone number that ends with 3999. The person who is called in on phone number ending in 3999. Could you introduce yourself, please? If not, I believe we skipped I believe it was a Johnny Fulmer. If you're here with us and can hear us and speak to us, we'd love to have you introduce yourself. And if not, did I miss anyone? The
Yes.
list? Okay, wonderful.
Raul Thomas, owner of Marietta's New Theater in the Square and board member of our beautiful and lovely Welcome Center here in Marietta, Georgia. I'm honored to be here and looking forward to helping improve and give great feedback and learn a whole lot more about Marietta.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I should know better than to use this participant list because it changes constantly. So I'm having to, I'm trying to keep up with the names and I always leave someone out. Anyone else that I may have left out?
No, Molly, I can just introduce Johnny though, since he's unable to. Johnny Fulmer is a downtown business owner. He's also a member of the Downtown Development Authority and is the longtime operator of the farmers market on the square as well. So
wonderful.
Appreciate him being here.
Thanks, Daniel. Did I hear someone else chime in?
Yes, this is Carlisle Kent,
Wonderful.
Marietta City Council. And my wife is trying to log on. She's Jocelyn Kent. She's Director of Care Coordination for Wellstar. So she should be on shortly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. All right.
Yes.
Let's now jump into just a quick overview of the comprehensive planning process. Oh, actually, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to participate first. So we actually are going to be using two different types of technology today, Zoom, as you already know. You can add questions and comments to the chat function. You can also unmute yourself and ask questions or provide comments. Do ask if you feel comfortable to also turn on your video if it's not already on. So either one of those is absolutely fine. I'll be monitoring the chat. We're also going to be using Poll Everywhere today during our conversation. And there are two ways to use Poll Everywhere. You can go online to pollev.com/cdev555. You'll just wait for that question to appear and then respond to it. The other option, if you're not at a computer, is to actually text, or even if you are and want to use text, you can text CDEV555 to the number 22333 once to join, and then you'll text your responses to 22333 after that. I'm going to go ahead and pause here, let you pull those up so that when we get to those questions, you're ready to go. Give you about 30 seconds or so. I will say, if something happens and your PollEV URL gets cleared or your phone goes down, these instructions will appear at the top of every question slide. So you don't need to remember any of this. It will appear again later on. Give you just a few more minutes. And again, I am muting those of you who are not speaking at the moment. Again, it just keeps the sound a little bit cleaner for the recording so that people are able to hear that a little bit better. All right, I'm going to move on unless there is any objection. Raise your hand if you'd like to stay on this screen for just a little bit longer. All right, we are going to move on. Okay, so why do we plan? There's a list of reasons here of why we plan, and a lot of you are in the planning sphere already, but what I like to think of when I think of planning is really taking stock of who we are as a community now, where we are now, where we want to be in the future, and how we want to get there. State law requires that we update our comprehensive plans every 5 years. And these are our umbrella plans. These are our overarching plans that really guide all of our development. And there are some required sections for all comprehensive plans in all communities throughout the state of Georgia. Those include vision and goals, needs and opportunities, a community work program, and broadband services. And funny enough, these plan elements actually follow that process of where we are now, which is our needs and opportunities section, where we want to be, which is our vision and goals, and how we're going to get there, which is our community work program. Some communities have other items that are required. For instance, like Marietta, communities that have a zoning ordinance also have to have a land use element. There are a number of other required elements, and then there's a whole host of other elements that you can include if you'd like, historic preservation, natural resources, to name just a few. But those are just if you would like to include those elements. Today, we're actually going to be starting with that needs and opportunities section, where we talk about Marietta's assets and challenges. As you already know, our first steering committee meeting is in January, our second in February. We're going to have a public meeting where we invite the general public in March. We're going to have our third and final steering committee meeting in April. We're going to be finalizing that plan in May so that your city council has plenty of time to review and edit that plan. We're going to have that public hearing or pre-transmittal hearing in August. And what that means is you have to have a public hearing to then forward that to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. They review it, provide comment. We make any of the updates that are necessary per those comments. And then your city council adopts it by October 31st so that you stay in what's called qualified local government status. And that matters because there are certain funding sources that are tied to qualified local government status. All right, so I'm going to pause here, ask if you have any questions about the process, about comprehensive plans in general, about the timeline, and if not, then we'll jump into data trends. Raise your hands, unmute yourself, and just ask the question. And if something comes up after we get into this next section, there's no problem. We can always go backwards. All right, so Marietta's population increased by 7.7% to nearly 61,000 people in 2020, after a 3.7% decline between 2000 and 2010. While Marietta's population has remained relatively steady, nearby cities have grown considerably, which you can see here in this graph. In addition, the city's median age of 34.9 is slightly lower than Cobb County's at 37.3. I'm going to pause here, let you take in some of this information. Again, raise your hands, unmute yourself. Ask me if you have any questions. All right, we're gonna mute.
Does this take?
Oh, sorry, Allison, I think I've asked you to unmute. I believe you might have been asking a question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, does this take into account like how large geographically each of these places is in terms of places they can live?
Right. So it doesn't it doesn't take into account that. So some of these are much smaller, some are larger, but they are either similar geographically in terms of where they're located or similar in their demographics. Our data team pulls what they consider to be the most, quote, similar for us to just kind of show by comparison. So if that's something you're all interested in, if you want to see similarly sized cities, or if you only want to see similarly located cities, within a 20-mile radius, that's something we can pull. This is just something that's generated by our research team, but we can always alter this based on your comments and what you're wanting to see.
I just feel like that's one of our challenges is we've run out of places to build homes. So you can only have so many people live here based on how many places we can have. So
right, absolutely. Well, I'll speak to your planners as well and see if maybe we want to alter some of these comparisons. Maybe there are some other cities that would be a better comparison to give us an idea of if there's a similar struggle in other communities.
Can I make a comment to maybe address what Allison said? I think if you look at it, and I know Alpharetta because I've built there, Alpharetta embraced density a little earlier and more. And so not necessarily lack of places to build, but the density. So more in town, they have apartments, they have more townhomes, more of that. So that allows them to grow quicker.
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, musings? This is our time to just kind of take all of this in, question what we're seeing. Let me know if there are some other data trends that you're wanting to see. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the other. Again, always happy to go backwards if you have any questions that come up after the fact. So the Atlanta Regional Commission developed the Metro Atlanta Housing Strategy, or MAHS, in 2019 to identify regional housing issues and provide a roadmap for communities to address their housing needs. The MAHS categorizes almost half of Marietta as submarket 5, or suburban neighborhoods along employment corridors with moderate to higher priced mix of single family and multifamily housing. Zillow data parallels this conclusion, revealing a median home sale price of $309,600 in 2020. Submarket 6, or suburban neighborhoods with moderate to higher priced housing, can be found in the northeast corner of the city, while submarket 2, or higher priced near core and employment corridor neighborhoods, is more centrally located. Finally, submarkets 1, 7, 4, and 3 cover smaller areas in the southeast quadrant of the city. And again, I'm going to just pause here and let you take in. I know this is a lot of information on this slide specifically. All right, moving on. The largest industry in Marietta, healthcare and social assistance, provides almost a quarter of Marietta's jobs, or 14,859 positions. The largest industry among the city's residents is also healthcare and social assistance, followed closely by retail trade. I'm also going to pause here, let you take in. I've pulled the top 10 industries in Marietta.
Will we be getting a copy of these slides sent to us?
Absolutely, yes. And a recording of this meeting will be available on our comprehensive plan webpage, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. So, but yes, absolutely, you'll get a copy of these. Any questions, thoughts? You can see here that retail trade, as far as an industry in Marietta, is actually 7th in line, even though that's the second highest industry among the city's residents as far as what they're working in. Which brings us to transportation trends. As is the case in much of the metro Atlanta area, almost 22,000 of Marietta's residents commute outside the city for work. 83% of the city's residents use a car to get to work each day. The vast majority of those drive alone, while about 8% carpool, 2% of residents use public transportation, and 8% work from home. Now, I do want to add that this information is up to 2019, so it's not taking into account any results or any changes that might have occurred due to the pandemic. As I'm sure you can imagine, that work from home number, I'm sure, has gone up considerably. All right. Well, again, any questions that you might have as we get into the conversation, I'm happy to go backward to any of these slides if you want to see them again. But now we're actually going to pull up our phones or our Poll Everywhere web pages and start here. So again, you can see the instructions at the top, pollev.com/cdev555, or text cdev555 to the number 22333. First question I want to ask is, what is Marietta's strongest asset? And I will say, you can make these responses relatively short. They can be as long as you want, but what we're going to do after you've responded is I'm going to open it up for conversation, because I'd like you to expound upon this and I'd like to have a conversation about it. So please feel free to respond when you're ready. Community, sense of community, small town community feel. First 3 have community in the word. That's great. Potential for walkability. All right. Walkable, vibrant square with great dining and cultural options. Bonnie, if you don't mind taking over for 2 seconds, we might have a slight technical issue. It says my meeting's going to end in 10 minutes.
Uh-oh.
So
yes.
Let me just work with this for 2 minutes.
Sure. The square, downtown area, location and historic character. Seeing these, does this bring anything to mind? Do you feel community character and potential? We've seen potential a couple times. Would anyone like to speak on what they see that potential to be? Business environment, local charm, and big city advantages. I would love to hear more about the potential. That intrigues me. When someone sees potential in something, there's usually kind of an image of what that potential might look like. Or anyone that said the square or the downtown. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Emmett Pollard. One of the things that I see as a strong asset for Marietta is just the efficiency in which processes work. If you need anything done civically or even in the private community, it works faster here than in other municipalities I've been engaged in.
And are there specific things that you're thinking about there, specific processes?
Yes, I can give you a couple of examples from business licensing to working with different entities such as public works. It's a very streamlined and efficient process comparable to other municipalities.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
No
Does anyone else have anything they would like to elaborate on? I see potential for live, work, play.
I can elaborate a little bit, leaning in from the slide that we just visited, which is kind of the influx of people who come here during the day, and the fact that we do have very vibrant and active business environment and business community here. And that's something that from a kind of a metro standpoint isn't always a resource for different communities. It's something that makes Marietta a little different, a little exceptional by my account.
Thank you for that.
All right, Bonnie, I'm back.
Okay.
Crisis averted.
Okay.
And I apologize for moving all those slides very quickly. I've been listening in as I could as I managed to fix the issue. But one thing I also wanted to hear about was, and this was a question that a colleague of mine asked at another meeting. A lot of times in meetings like this, we get the term small town feel. It's a very common response to a question like this, but small town feel can mean really different things for a lot of different people. And so I'd really like to know what you all mean by small town feel. For me, there's always this assumption that it's historic buildings, cute little charming. It has to do with the built environment, but I don't think that's the case for everyone. And I just want to make sure that there isn't that assumption there, that we all know what each other means when we say small town.
This is Carlisle, and I grew up in a small town where you saw a lot of familiar faces when you went to the shops and restaurants. And I think that's what we fell in love with Marietta, is that we see a lot of familiar faces when we go to the restaurants, to the farmers market, or the other businesses on the square, or concerts in the park. So it feels like home.
Anyone else?
Molly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Johnny Fulmer. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Good. We, because of our location on the square and the farmers market, we see a lot of people from out of town. Excuse me 1 second here while Susan, would you answer the phone, please? We have one customer from out of town just this week came into our store and said, I love to come to this city because it is normal. And that word normal caught my attention, because I feel like we are getting back to normal.
Getting back to normal from the pandemic?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the farmers market and here in the store, we're seeing a tremendous number of young families pushing baby buggies and walking their dog, and they're bringing their parents from out of town to visit because they are proud of where they live.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would say that it's a real place. Even though we're suburbia, everybody, it feels like this community, the small town feels like Mr. Kent said, people, and there's so much potential there because I think you could make it extend beyond the square, that feeling of small town and, the unique architecture and stuff like that. But it's definitely unique because even amidst Atlanta and all the sprawling bedroom communities, it has a sense of place here.
Absolutely. And I will say it had been a very long time since I had been to Marietta when I came to your first public hearing. And I always thought of Marietta as a quaint historic town. And I drove up and there were these tall buildings. It was so interesting. There was so much energy there, and you could tell there's been so much happening and so much invested in the area, and it was just so cool to see. So I really appreciated that. I see someone has put a perceived weakness, or weaknesses perceived. We're going to talk about that actually on our next slide. So I would encourage you to actually put that in our next slide. Want to invite anyone else who wants to talk about our assets for just a couple more minutes before we do move on.
Guess I can try a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit of mixture. With Marietta, you have a bunch of different areas all around, different mix of stuff. You have the square, you have other areas, more commercial, more residential, a mix of historic, a mix of new. You get the small town feel as you get closer, I guess, closer to the downtown. We have the central downtown. Then you have certain areas that people might generally go to that are thankfully vibrant, where you can see a lot of different people and whatnot, as Councilmember Kent said. So that's kind of where I think the small town feel is. You get the people have a lot of different possible gathering places, and then there are also potential areas where you have the Powder Springs Street corridor, the Roswell Street corridor, and other corridors throughout the city that I know that we're currently working on with certain redevelopment, and trying to get that trying to expand out from the square to get good feelings on those areas as well. By the way, I think I still have a countdown on my thing, by the way.
I do too.
Does someone have a full Zoom account? Because that might, them being hosts.
We do. We have been told to use our different license. If we are kicked off of this meeting, I will update our calendar invite with a new link immediately. So just look for that update to come in just a matter of seconds, and then jump on that meeting. But it shouldn't kick us off. So because it looks as I've been told that we have been upgraded and that this shouldn't be an issue. Hold on 1 minute. The person who is helping me. I apologize for this, everyone.